And you might have also heard things like no risk, no reward. You got to speculate to accumulate. Which is more important, the rate of return or the rate of savings? That's the question we're going to be exploring today. We've got some really good math to back up how you might think about this and have some fun with it. But we also want to hear from you. The comments are open. Please comment, say hi, ask questions, ask us to prove our math if you need us, all those kind of things. And we're going to jump in. So I'm saying this mostly for the people watching the replay. So glad that you're here. As folks join us live, please, we can comment and answer your questions live. We see them. So wherever you're watching this on Facebook or YouTube or what have you, all the comments will come in and we'll be able to talk about them. So, and if you're just joining the channel, wherever you're watching this, make sure you like the video, share it, help us get this good actual math and analysis strategy out into the world rather than all the speculation and stuff out there. Okay, that's my little intro. When you we titled this episode, Why Rate of Return Doesn't Matter and What Does. And I'm hearing a little background noise. I'm not sure who that's coming from. That's better. Let's when you what makes us even approach this question of rate of return and does it matter or not matter? Why is it important to even ask that question and consider that as a legitimate question to talk about?
I'll jump in on this one, Amanda. Yeah, thank you for having me on. Really glad to be here. And this important question, I think it's...
Hold on. I think you're still in the other microphone.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Let me give it a shot.
Yeah.
Audio. Oh, I see what happened.
We are live.
Rock and roll. How about now?
There we go.
There we go.
Amanda, thanks for having me on. And Brandon, thanks for having me on as a guest. This is a big deal. Like the sine qua non, the most important, the raison d'etre, the reason for being for the entire financial industry, the retirement planning industry, I'll call them the investment guru industry, is let me get a higher rate of return for you, buddy. And hey, I'll swing you a little bit more risk and you'll get a little bit more reward. You bring your accounts over to me and I'll just charge you this, this measly 1%, and I'll give you 10% rate of return, 12% rate of return. It's really it's sort of the I don't want to get too crude here. So let's just say it's the contest between advisors that usually is fought and won or lost over rate of return. Who's going to give me the rate of return? And hey, how's your financial planner doing? How are you doing versus how am I doing? We're at the neighborhood barbecue. We're talking about how's our portfolio doing this year? And what are we talking about? Are we talking about, anything other than what was your rate of return this year? And we had a pretty wonky year last year in the markets in 2022. And it's looking pretty wobbly this year in 2023. And it's all about rate of return. And that's what we're all, I guess, primarily focused on. And my daughter is reading a series of parable books on special fables is what it's about. And one of the most famous fables out there is the blind men feeling the different parts of the elephant. Mm-hmm. And we've all heard this before, so I'll be brief, but one man feels the trunk, says it's a snake. One man feels the side of the elephant, says it's a big wall. One man feels the tail and says, well, this is like a mouse. And of course, the reality is it's none of those things. It's an elephant. It's all of those things combined, but we don't see it because we're so, laser focused on one part. So Amanda, you rightly titled this, Why Rate of Return Doesn't Matter, and then what does. Guys, hang into our episode. We're going to talk about what does matter. What's more important than rate of return? And I'll give you a clue. You cannot go to the grocery store and spend a rate of return. So there has to be something else that helps you in your goals if you want to eat today, tomorrow, and into retirement.
Yeah, Brandon, react to that. And I want to talk to Evie for a minute. Tell her about a book that she should read. Go ahead, Brandon.
Well, one thing I wanted to think about is, again, it's more than just...
He's pretty quiet too.
Oh, you can't hear me?
Yeah, that's better. Go ahead.
Now we're real quiet.
All right, here we go.
There we go.
So the thing I think about is like it's more than just the but like we did an episode on buying the house. There's so much other variables, like interest rates and I don't know the cost of the house, where it's changed and all that stuff. And so the rate of return, people are asking that similar question of, oh, it's gonna, well, what happens if you lose out, or don't sell now because your negative rate of, I don't know, all these questions. And literally I was just on a conversation with somebody and they were saying, yes, but if you don't do it, if you switch, you're going to lose out on what it's going to do, the growth or whatever, I don't know. And I said, well, there's more than just that. And rate of return is one thing, maybe, but there's so much more to it. And peace of mind, making sure you don't, your 401k doesn't become that 201k, which I'm hearing a lot of. And you can actually buy groceries. That's a positive thing. All of those things I think is important, and why we're wanting to do this episode just after we did the episode on the should I buy a house now or 3 years ago. It's very much related.
Yeah. What I'm thinking about is something that I heard first from our good friend Les Himmel. He's been a guest with us on the show before. He might even be watching right now. But I heard him say one time, the higher your rate of return or average rate of return, the more volatile the stock usually is. That if you're getting a 12% is actually probably higher than in terms of volatility, how much it could go down than something lower rate of return. And then, so here, I finally got around to reading The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. And I don't agree with everything in the book, but he actually said the same thing in just a different way. And it finally made me realize what Les was saying, that everything has a cost. It just depends on when you're going to pay it. So if you're looking for a high rate of return, guess what? That volatility that comes with it, that's the cost that you pay. And when you're chasing the rate of return, you are likely to pay a higher cost when that goes, negative or down for a while, and then takes however long to get back to positive. And then it has to grow more than that to catch up with what it would have done in the meantime, and all those kind of things. That actually, when you're chasing a rate of return, you often pay a higher cost trying to get that return than people who maybe have a lower rate of return that's more steady. And I was like, Morgan, this guy that talks about index funds and stock market all over the place, I can't believe that he's willing to say that in a book, like in print. That I was like impressed with his honesty there. So I'd love to.
Can you restate that?
When Evie's ready to read that book, I look forward to hearing her perspective on it.
Yeah.
So Mark, what I think you read that book. I think I've heard you talk about it before.
Well, yeah. Say again the title.
The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel.
Yeah. There's a lot in there, and there's so many. I guess there's so much behavior baked into chasing rate of return. I feel like when I meet with clients one-on-one, one of the recurring statements I hear them say is, "Hey, Mark, I'm blank, blank, blank years old. I don't have enough saved. I don't have enough time to do boring low rates of return. So I can't save a lot. So I need to go put more at risk and catch up. That, I'll have to put more at risk. And that means I need a higher rate of return to make up for my lack of ability to save money and the fact that I'm too little too late here." I don't know if you guys have ever experienced that in your conversations, but I know that makes sense in your mind. But please realize risk does not equal reward. Taking greater risk only increases the probability of loss. Okay, that's
Say that again.
Yeah, risk does not equal reward. Risk is just increasing the probability of loss. And so we're more likely going to lose when we chase rate of return. It's like the dog that chases the mailman. You don't want to be the dog that catches the mailman. You might get flattened, is the idea there. So guys, you're right. Amanda, there's a screen share I could put up here if you if you would
Please.
find it
Yeah,
helpful.
go for it.
So I'll pull my screen up here. Okay.
I mean, what wouldn't be a live video without a screen share and doing some math?
That's right. That's right. I know Amanda has some really good ones too. So yeah,
Okay.
there's
Oh,
should be ready for you to pull up if you can
yeah.
find it.
Trying to figure out how to. Oh, there we go. There
So
you are.
real simple. This is just an example, simple math example, where it says, hey, you know what? If you lost 10% in the market, most people think I just need to get 10% back and I'll be even. That's not exactly true. We'd actually need to get 11.1% back in the markets just to break even. Same thing, if we lost 25% in the market, which is kind of what happened last year in 2022, depending on what index you're tracking, you'd need 33% just to break even. So the bad years hurt more than the good years help. And while we're talking about it, this is volatility, isn't it? When you deviate from the mean, meaning if you deviate from that up and to the right trajectory that financial planners love to show you, when they're showing you that straight, beautiful upward J-curve line, saying, hey, look, you're going to make your goals happen like that. A dream is a wish your heart makes. And all you have to do is dream and hope for your 12% rate of return in your mutual funds. You'll have 3 million, 5 million by retirement. But the trouble is volatility. And as you said, Amanda, so well, and Les Himmel said so well, volatility is like a cost. It's like an extra viper in your portfolio that's stealing from you. It's like a thief in your portfolio, taking money out of your back pocket. I heard the other day that every single year, at least temporarily, the stock market loses 14%. That's according to a book by, what's his name? Tony Robbins. He wrote the book Money. And in that book, he talks about, on average, over the last 100 years, at least temporarily, the market has lost 14%. Now, most of the time it bounces back and you get a positive for the year, but you lost 14% of your money temporarily, right? And then you had to climb back out of that hole more than 14% just to get back to even. Now, as I've talked with clients about this, I asked them, if every single year it got really cold outside, wouldn't you want a coat? Wouldn't you want to anticipate that and get a coat? Or if every day you went on the subway to work and someone stole your wallet and took 14% of your money out of your wallet, wouldn't you find a way to chain up that wallet and keep yourself protected? Most of us have nothing like that for our biggest assets in our portfolios. Our 401ks and our IRAs are pretty well exposed to the winter air, which comes every single year. By the way, the bear markets come every 3 to 5 years, and you can lose more than 35% of your money every 3 to 5 years. Now, why would I choose to do that and not have any way to protect myself?
Great question.
Why do people do that? As much as we can share.
Well, actually, let's go back. I think so Mark said something really important. I've got a screen share too. So I'm going to do my screen share now. And it's because
I have a screen share too. Just kidding. I don't.
When you go to the investment advisor and they're showing you, you can expect, maybe 12%, but let's be conservative, let's do 8%. They only show you this green line, right? The nice, smooth, straight projections, 8% every single year. That's all people see. But that's not what the market actually does. So let's look at this next line. That one's the green one. This one's the teal one. This is where the money goes up 36% and then down 20%, and then up 36, down 20, and repeating this for 10 years. So it's still an 8% average return, but look at where it ends compared with where the first one ended.
So one is at a little north of $200. For those who can't see the picture, it's like 220 bucks, let's say. And then the other one, which was going up and down with more volatility, lands closer to $150. Is that right?
Yeah.
Both were 8% average rates of return.
Yep. And
doesn't one look like a slithering little viper?
Right. Right. But at the end of the first year, you're super excited. You got a 36% rate of return when your guide promised you just 8%, right? And then you're kind of mad at them the next year, but you remember the 36. So you're like, I'll stick with it. Then you get 36 the next year. You think you're getting ahead, right? You're mad at them one year, but then really happy the next year. And the years that are bigger are better than the years that are down, right? Or let's say you got a really great guy that gets you 56% the first year.
Wow.
And then down 40 and then up 56, you still think you're getting ahead and you still do get an 8% rate of return. But here's the long and short of it. Instead of $216 with the consistent 8%, with that up 36, down 40, you end up with $72 after 10 years, repeating
Wow.
that cycle over and over again. So you ended up losing money, even though you got a 8% positive average rate of return for those 10 years.
Amanda, drop some sort of microphone or something, please.
Yeah, so you can lose money with an 8% average rate of return.
Wow. So again, for those who may not be able to see what we're looking at, there are two scrunched up, coiled up snakes in this portfolio. And it really does. It looks like we're fighting off a pit of snakes here. And the only one that is positive is the boring, consistent, steady 8%. Now, are we saying that you absolutely are going to get 8% consistently in some sort of, magical investment? No. I think Amanda is just proving a point that volatility, it has a cost to it. Is that what I'm seeing you?
Yeah.
And the other thing, Amanda, is how would it feel to be on the black line? As you said, you feel great right away. You went up to $156 in the first year, and then you're down the next year, and then you finally catch up in year 3. So I just want to think, like, how would it feel to be at the barbecue talking about this?
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, my guy got me 56% last year. How about your gal or your guy or whatever? Oh,
Right.
I've only got 8%.
Yeah. And it's positive every year in terms of the average rate of returns. When I look at my statement, I think I'm getting ahead because my guy is showing me the average all along and it's always positive. And part of the trouble is this is very simple. No one ever just puts in $100 and doesn't put in any more, or very rarely. More often we're adding 100 and then the next year another 100 or 100,000 or whatever it might be. And so we lose track of how much we put in. We forget how to calculate it. So all we're looking at in our statement is what the company that we're investing through tells us is our rate of return. And they're going to just show us the average. And so we're blindly continuing forward, not knowing that we could be down at the end of 10 years.
I think on top of that, thinking about if it's a company 401k and the matches and all of that confusion there of saying, okay, who put in money? Did I put in money or I don't even know what my, how much I give per month is, right? As we do a lot of analysis, they're like, what's 8% or 2% or whatever. They usually don't know the actual numbers that they're putting in. So they can't even calculate, am I losing money or where is it at, right? And then we haven't even accounted for taxes in some of those places, right? And then again, as I think through this, these are all real people's lives. These are people who hoped and prayed and thought this is what's going to happen, and they're coming to retirement or a time when they need it, and it's not there because they were just told, don't worry about it, set it and forget it. And again, I've said this before, it's kind of like an abusive relationship. I don't know what to say about it.
Let's turn this into a positive. Okay. Enough negative, enough talking about the problem, bringing awareness to what's really happening and what people don't see unless they lift up the hood and look under it and ask lots of questions. Let's flip this into maybe what could be a positive way to look at this, why rate of return doesn't matter and what does matter. Who wants to take a first stab at that?
Yeah. Amanda, what does matter is really important.
Yeah, you've given us some really good things to think about here, Amanda. And so I cannot control a lot about my life. There's some things I think I can influence. And I want to be clear that I believe in the power of reaching for things to improve the situation I'm in. So some things we are really out of control with what the market's going to do. I don't exactly have like market making power. I'm not exactly at that point in my financial life at this time. I'm not Warren Buffett or anything. So what is something I or you can do, or anyone watching can do, that has a positive impact on this? How can we squash the snakes in our portfolio?
Yeah. You want to see some math?
Let's do it.
Oh, looks like we just got spooky letters. We're getting spooky with our
Ooh,
names
cool.
at the bottom. They just switched. It's Halloween themed. We just switched. So I will share this on my screen. If people write screen or yes in the comments, I will share this. But for now, I'm just going to talk about it until I see some yes or some comments from people watching live. I see you. I know you're here.
You got to have some interaction now. They got to write yes.
And not just from Julia commenting as the Not Your Average Financial Podcast. You don't count, cheater. So
she does count.
No, here's what I did. I took a 3% rate of return and saving $500 a month for 30 years. No change to the rate of return, just to have a baseline, right? $500 every single month for 30 years. What do you have at the end of the 30 years? Then I did, what if you got 4%? What if you got 1% more rate of return? How much more do you have? And then I compared that to how much more do you have if you stay at 3% and you increase your savings rate from $500 by 1% per quarter. So if this quarter you're saving $500, the next quarter, 4 months from now, oh wait, I did it every 4 months. That's every quarter. Yes. Okay. Sorry. Friday math brain. Every 4 months you change and you move up. So you're moving up to 505. And then I think it's like 511 and some change in 3 months.
So that's pretty doable, is what you're saying. There's
exactly.
1% per quarter. Okay.
Yeah. By the end of 30 years, you're saving, where's my math here? You got up to $1,212.19. Like with inflation, you should totally be able to do that, right?
Yeah.
Like, okay. So Julia's the only yes.
There's other yeses. Come on, put them in the comments, guys. I want to hear a yes. 3 months in a quarter.
So I did it every 4 months. So it's not even every quarter. My bad.
Yeah.
3 times a year. That's easy.
Yeah. So I just did 3 times a year.
So that's really just 3% increasing savings by 3% a year.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. I was doing Thursday math when I did this. Okay. I'll share my screen because Julia, you got my correction there.
You do count.
Yes. Okay. Let me zoom in on this. Here's the reveal. So the 3%, 360 months, 500 per month. I use my future value calculation, made Excel do all the math, 291,000. Increased to 4%, 347,000 and some change.
Future value, that is what we've basically saved, what the account balance is after 30 years. Am I hearing that right?
With the interest piling up. Yep.
Great.
If we'd started with 500, but we increased it 1% per quarter, we get up to 438,000. So the difference by getting a 1% higher rate of return for all 30 years, every single month, no change to that from 3% to 4%. That difference is, let's see, make Excel do the math for us, about $56,000 rounding.
So before you move on, what you just said is, for reaching for additional yield, for chasing spookier investments that have spooky there, that could possibly go wrong, right? Remember, increasing risk does not mean increased reward. It just means increased probability of loss. What you just said is, for all that work to go from 3% to 4%, we have an additional $55,000. And I don't know what the value of 55,000 is for all the sleepless nights that you may have had to go through over 30 years to reach for that. And yeah, we get it. I mean, Amanda, 3%, that's not crazy scary returns. 4%, probably pretty doable, especially in today's age. But guys, look, this is a concept. Extrapolate this to your mutual fund in or your index fund in your 401k. If you're trying to reach for 10% versus 8%, is that really going to do all the heavy lifting for you? Or, as Amanda, you're about to show us here, is a rate of savings more powerful than a rate of return? Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Please.
No, you're
carry
good.
on.
Thank you so much. So instead, if I stay at 3%, but I increase by 1% per quarter, how much I'm saving, I save an extra $147,000.
At the 3% rate of return. So the boring rate
Yep.
of return, but just you have more control. Which one of these do we have more control over? Of course, the savings rate, don't we?
Yep.
Cut that Netflix and save it, and look what it does for you over time.
I've got one more set of numbers. I wanted to put myself in the devil's advocate shoes. And here I just increased the rate of return by 1%, to like 1% for the whole year, right? From 3% to 4%. And we did it for all 30 years. What if we took the 3% and we tried to increase the rate of return we were getting by 1% per 4 months? Not quarter, 4 months. We get 3.03% the next 4 months, and then keeps going from there. So just to see, like, instead of trying to save more, what if I just try to inch up my rate of return? What does that get me? And what that showed me was I get $446,000. So I'm increasing from 3% by 1% per quarter. So I do get $8,000 more than so I got $446,000 instead of $438,000. $8,000 more, rounding. But look at this. I had to go, remember it was from 500 to 1,200 is my savings rate, how it increased over 30 years. My rate of return starts at 3, right? Goes to 3.03. By the end of the 30 years, I'm all the way down here. Let's keep going. Actually, I'll use my shortcut in Excel at 7.27% rate of return. So
Wow.
let's say I started when I was 30. Now I'm 60. What kind of risk do I need to be taking to be making 7% at that point? 7.27%. And am I going to want to take the risk? Actually, shouldn't I get less risky as I get older? Right. So maybe that devil's advocate, I was like, well, I tried, right? But I wouldn't want to go on that trip. I don't know if anybody else does.
Well, that's phenomenal. I was going to ask a slightly different question, but I like what you've done here better. No, I like what you've done better. I was going to ask, what kind of rate of return would we need on the first chart?
To get here
to equal 438,000. So on column A, row 3, it's probably a lower number because it'd be over time, probably be 5%, something like that. I bet you it's close to 5% is my guess. But the point remains, if you,
it's a lot higher.
Oh, is it really? Okay.
If I did this correctly. Oh wait, nope. Sorry. Hold on.
Well, your point is proven that point is proven that you can either hope and pray with a higher rate of return, or you can increase your rating, savings rate.
5.29.
Oh, it was 5.29. Okay. Yeah. Woo. All right. I'm going to bed, guys. I'm out. No, that's awesome. Well, point is, we'd almost have to double our rate of return, or pathetically small increase in our savings rate has a much better yield. This is awesome. Amanda, what a cool spreadsheet.
Thanks. It was fun to make. I'm going to update it to make it increase every quarter rather than every 4 months going forward. Use my Profit First professional hat that's quarterly. Part of why I picked every quarter.
Well, we can do this even on a simple basis too. Like, let's say that you have $500 that you can set aside, and it goes into a 0% tin can. $500 goes into a 0% tin can. And let's say that, I only can save $5 a month or whatever, but I'm getting a 10%, I'm getting a 10% rate of return on that money. I would much rather a solid, guarantee that I'm going to have that money again than the wild extremes of possibly losing that money or saving less of it. So let's say that, for example, I make $100,000 a year of income, and let's say all I can do is save 5% of my money. So that's out of 100, that's $5,000. $5,000. Let's say that I get some magical mutual fund that doubles my money that year. All right. So my $5,000 becomes $10,000 at the end of the year. Let's say Amanda, who's been a great, disciplined saver, she's able to say she makes 100 grand a year, but she can save 20% of her money, but it goes into a tin can. Her tin can has $20,000 in it. Mine only has, even after taking that doubling risk and happily came out on the other side with more money, I only have 10 grand. So rate of return is not as important as savings rate, as Amanda so beautifully said with the spreadsheet. So great stuff.
Yeah, this is a lot of fun. Brandon, I want to give you a chance to jump in, and then I've got a little spoiler alert. Hopefully you don't jump to the spoiler alert.
I don't know what the spoiler is,
Okay.
but yeah, I think, again, a lot of times when we're being marketed to or told by the market, or even I was just on a call with somebody and their family member is on the other side saying, well, you're going to miss out on this or that, or, all of this stuff. And I'm like, it's kind of like that tortoise versus the hare kind of thing. And we're like, oh yes, but I'm not doing so well. It's not, but it really, there's only like a couple things I tell people that they can do. They can either make more money or decrease expenses. That's really it. And then if you have more money, you can build a bigger foundation. Maybe you risk more if you want, but I want to build a solid foundation first and be okay with losing stuff off the top if we have a hurricane. I don't know, whatever. And going for some of that crazy rate of return, but also not just giving it into an investment vehicle that we're like, let's put in the stock, but invest in things right? That's more important to me than just, I don't know, Tesla stock or something.
Yes. Thanks for the mention on the tortoise versus the hare. Pamela Yellen, the trademark owner, creator of the Bank on Yourself concept, she has an amazing fun calculator on her website where you can see who actually wins in the financial version of tortoise versus the hare.
See, apparently I didn't even know that. And apparently I'm a true Bank on Yourself person, because I am literally, I just used her stuff and didn't even know it.
Well, and it brings it full circle too, because we started with the parable at the beginning, or a fable, and now we're ending with another fable. Or getting close, we're in the middle. We're in another fable. We'll see if we can get to another one. My shameless plug / spoiler alert is that this coming Wednesday, so if you're watching this when it comes out on October 27th, November 1st, I believe, is the following Wednesday, we have a podcast episode coming out where we're going to talk about the difference in interest rates and how higher interest rates impact savings versus impact debt. And if you're increased interest on your debt, how does that differ? Do some of the math and increase interest on your savings. Because I want people to go, subscribe to our podcast, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Be sure you catch that when it comes out. We're not going to get into that math today. But the other thing I want to highlight is the person who's saving and has liquid, difference between saving and investing. Saving is liquid, accessible whenever you need, might get a lower rate of return, but it's there when you need it, versus someone that's investing when you're putting your money at risk, when it could, it's money you can afford to lose, hopefully, but you're putting it at risk. It may or may not be there when you need it. Which one often goes into debt, right? Mm-hmm. Which one is often paying the fees on loans, right? The interest rates on the loans, because they didn't want to sell their stocks when they were down, or all their money's tied up and they're playing the long game. And so, and an emergency happens, they end up paying 19% or 29% on a credit card.
That's a really good point. Yeah, that's all one wallet, isn't it? So having liquid access to money can make a big difference in your overall performance. I had several different clients. I can think of one guy in particular right now who was doing okay in his mutual funds, 12%, let's say, for the last 2 or 3 years. Way to go. Wow. But he was losing over 30% of his after-tax money to debt, like mortgage, vacation home, boat, couple of cars, medical, student loan debt. All of that wrapped up was 30% after-tax money and only earning 12% pre-tax in his 401k. So who's winning in that game, right? Of course, the banks are winning in that game. That's the problem. There's another, you said you had a sneak, another
No,
kind of like
I showed
surprise.
everything. I showed everything.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well,
So let's recap where we're at so far.
Yeah.
We shared why rate of return doesn't matter. We shared what does in terms of savings rate, how much you are saving. And then we also talked about it also matters to look more holistically. You can't just look at your rate of return. You have to look at things like how much is going to debt, what kind of interest are you paying, taking that more holistic perspective. I really look forward to what's next. Go ahead,
Love it.
Mark.
So good. Well, that's awesome. No, I love it. I think what matters more than a rate of return, when you asked that question, it was making me think about that too. And it got me back to the question, what's the goal of your money? And it's just a simple question that I think more people should ask. There should be a financial mission statement in your household. Talk about it if you're married or have a family or partner or whatever. Make it conversational. What is the point of all your toil at work if you don't have a mission statement or a purpose statement? You need to really think about that. Like, you work hard for this stuff, this green stuff. So figure out what it's for. I would say part of the strategy, solutions, and work that we put together, of course, is using something called Bank on Yourself, which is a modernized version of dividend-paying whole life insurance. Now, most people think life insurance and they think, oh, the goal of that money is to leave it to my family someday. But I know Brandon, Amanda, and myself, and many other Bank on Yourself professionals, we're putting the Bank on Yourself whole life insurance strategy, not just to the life insurance, although the death benefit's there and all that. The purpose of that money for me and a lot of our clients is what you see on the screen here. I mean, not just retirement income, but certainly that too. And we've talked on other podcasts and live shows like this, all the ways we can use the policies for college or real estate investing. But let's just take a minute and talk about what's more important than a rate of return. Because the first thing most people say when they hear the words whole life insurance is, oh, it has a stinking low rate of return. Who wants to waste your money into a boring whole life policy? Well, let's find out. Okay. And let's just totally forget about the whole Bank on Yourself borrowing for the real estate and all the beautiful things that you can use the policy for. Let's just look at this thing through the lens of retirement income. Because isn't that the point of chasing rate of return for most people? Isn't that the point of reaching for yield, is retirement income? So let's find out if boring, low, steady rates of return beat out what the market might be able to give us with its choppy waters and its vipers in the portfolio. Okay.
I'm on the edge of my seat. Can't wait to find out.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to be, again, kind of leaning heavy on the investment side. I'm going to use Vanguard's own retirement calculator when we do these numbers. So, but first, I want to show you what the whole life policy is doing. Now, again, this is a whole life policy that maximizes cash value. I know there's a ton of numbers on the screen here, but we're blending it with paid up additions to give it as much of a run rate as possible, cutting the commissions out of this. This is typical Bank on Yourself design. And what we're looking at here is someone who was willing and able to put in $25,000 a year for 25 years. So again, all of your numbers would be different. Please don't pay as much attention to the particular numbers as the concept, because your plan, your specific detailed solution will be different depending on your circumstance. But if we just use this calculator, we can really figure out what sort of rate of return would be necessary to keep up with the whole life policy. So after 25 years, this guy is able to take out $62,265 per year. And by the way, we did this where it was no taxes due. It's a non-MEC policy from age 66 to age 100. So that is a lot of money to take out. You put in $25K a year for 25 years. You pull out $62,000 a year from age 66 to 100. So let's go to Vanguard and figure out what would Wall Street need to do to match that. Again, whole life insurance returns are pretty boring, modest, middle single digit returns. But again, what matters more than a rate of return? Let's find out. So let's say we invested $25,000 a year into the stock market, just like the whole life policy. Okay. In order to pull out $62,000 a year in retirement from age 66 to age 100, the same as the whole life insurance, you'd need 9.1% annual average rate of return. And it also would have to be no taxes due. Now, you guys might be able to pick up on this. No stock market account would be tax-free except the Roth IRA and maybe a few other Roth accounts like the Roth 401k. The Roth IRA won't even let you put in $25,000 a year. So you'd have to sneak around and find some backdoor Roth ways to do this, or maybe get into a Roth 401k. But it would be tough just to squeeze all that money into this instrument. But then you got to somehow every single year without fail or volatility get 9.1% in the stock market. That's an average rate of return, right? And Amanda, you just exploded the average myth in your example, and why, having a steady, modest return is going to be okay. And actually, you can get a lower rate of return and equal what you'd have to chase after with market-based volatile Viper in your portfolio style rates of return. So I still don't see anyone like reacting to this in the stock market world, the investment world. Why isn't the whole life policy at least a contender in your rate of income conversation? So you ask what's more important than rate of return. I would say rate of income is what matters to me, because that's what the money was for in the first place.
Yeah.
So again, go back to purpose. What was the purpose of your money? And if it's about retirement income, at least look at whole life insurance through that lens. And, to hell with what the people think it should do for you, or what they say it should do, or what the bias is from Wall Street. If the account does what you need it to do, then, who cares what you call it? I can call my money a ham sandwich if it does what I need it to do.
Yeah. So we've got rate of savings. We've got liquidity, ability to not pay an interest rate to a bank or a finance company. And then we've got income, rate of income. What's awesome is that those can be mutually beneficial, right? The more you save, the more income you have, the less that goes to the bank, the more you can save, the more income you have. Like, I'm seeing fireworks popping off in my brain right now. It's beautiful. And I love your question. Like, why is nobody talking about this? Like, why aren't they willing to admit what we're showing here? And I love that people are starting to. Ernst & Young, EY, put out a report this year that showed that having properly designed whole life insurance and fixed indexed annuities in a portfolio help produce, the income that people need for retirement better than just a stock or even a stock bond portfolio mix. I'll find that link when I stop talking and put it in the chat too, if people want to check it out. They didn't talk about debt because it's not what their whole thing was about. They didn't talk about saving more, but they at least were willing to say for retirement income, that a portfolio that has both some stocks in it, right? You can risk money, you can afford to lose, right? No, we're not saying don't do that. We're saying balance that properly with things that are going to bring that safety and that peace of mind and actually give you a good income as well. Thanks so much, Mark. I'm putting all the pieces together. Give Brandon a chance to react here too.
Well, one of the things I was thinking is, Mark, did you title your podcast Average Financial Podcast or what?
Yeah, the Average Financial Podcast can be heard anywhere you listen to other average financial podcasts, but I don't know who runs that show. We're not your average financial podcast, partly because of this exact myth that we're trying to bust, because it matters. Why does any of this matter, Brandon? Why does it matter that we are dispelling the average rates of return?
I mean, I look around and I say, oh man, again, that abusive relationship idea, and saying, man, we need to change from this. People are starting to wake up. People are starting to say, wait a second, something doesn't feel right. And they know it. They've known it for a while, but now they're starting to really sense it more and more. And for us, we've been in the backgrounds and people saying, well, no, you're just trying to make a lot of money or whatever. I'm like, no, we want to help our clients actually weather the storms, whether it's a family member passing, something happens financially, a flood in our case, that we can then weather that storm and still get out on top. And I think that there's no people that almost it feels like they don't have your back, right? And we block it up into these things that we can't touch till we're 60 and hoping and praying that it's going to be great and it's going to go up and to the right. But then more and more volatility as we've seen. One of my clients was saying just today, before he might be on listening. He was saying, I watched you guys' episode about spooky things that happen, which this is kind of a spooky thing. We did it 4 years ago, I believe. And right before saying what could happen in the world. And then COVID happened, right? Which was really, really interesting. And knowing that even the stability of the places that we work has withstood a pandemic and all of this other things, we're still going up in the right direction. Not fast, but we are going in the right direction. We're not having to worry about, oh, what's this person going to say or do, and how's that going to affect, or is the election next year? So is that next year?
Yeah.
I don't even know when it is. I know the commercials will start, but I'm a little worried about that because who knows what will happen with each election cycle.
So we've talked about the savings rate as a better plan than relying on rate of return. We've talked about liquid access to money and how there's a rate of return on liquidity that is sort of a phantom to us. So you might say it's not an implicit, it's not going to be on your report. But when you avoided that credit card because you had a big pile of money in your policy, that's a rate of return all on its own. So that's another piece to the puzzle for folks watching. Then we talked about rate of income and how important it is to choose a financial tool that's efficient at generating income in retirement. I want to throw one more log on the fire here, and that is efficiency over time. And you guys know all about this, but when you started, anybody here play a musical instrument? Yeah?
Yeah.
Amanda, now's your chance. Tell the world.
Oh, I started with piano, then I learned the whole percussion suite, and then I learned saxophone.
Oh, awesome.
I was at a steel drum band for 5 years.
I need you to teach my daughter. There's some things on the keyboard we're working on, so let's talk later. But
Okay.
That's awesome. The steel drums even? That's so
Yeah.
cool. All right, so awesome. So I'll love to come to your concert when that happens. The efficient, I guess the ease at which you're able to take on one instrument after the other. My guess is the first instrument was the hardest, probably took you the longest, and then a little bit easier the next time, a little bit easier the next time. If you were on instrument 30, you probably could pick it up a little easier than instrument 1. That's my guess.
Yeah, I think languages work the same way. The first
Yeah, I
language
think
you
you're
learn
right.
is the hardest, and then
That's right.
yeah.
Very few things work this way, where it gets easier over time. Like my car is going to get less efficient the longer I drive it. My house is going to get less efficient. It's going to leak, little cracks, whatever. It always needs upgrading. And again, with volatility, that breaks the efficiency of that generating force known as your savings portfolio, your investment portfolio. When you're constantly breaking compound growth through volatility, or when you have to withdraw money to go pay for the emergency, right? That is consistently breaking the efficiency. It's like you're starting all over again, literally, with musical instrument number 1, when you have to constantly break compound growth. Now, whole life insurance or anything that has a up and to the right straight line is getting more and more and more efficient and is mathematically exponential. And that's the technical definition of that word, exponential. Which of these would you rather have when you can't work anymore? Do you want a Wall Street always breaking, sometimes surging, sometimes crashing portfolio that it feels great when you're going up in your portfolio balance and you're 23 years old, but it's terrifying when you're 73 years old and you're pinching your pennies and using the senior discount at Shoney's, you know? Or would you rather your whole life policy generating the most efficient returns it's ever made, or increases in cash and returns that it's ever made into your 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and beyond? For me, I want something that's more and more and more and more efficient the longer I keep it. And honestly, that's more important than this year's rate of return.
Yeah. I think I've heard you ask the question before. When do you want your highest rate of return? If you are fixated on a rate of return, when do you want your highest rate of return? And one of the things I think of that breaks down is our bodies. Whether we like it or not, our bodies get older, they get frailer, right? We end up having more health issues, some more, some less, but still more than when we were younger. And that's when I want my best rate of return, because I can't go back to work in my 90s, most likely.
Point.
I won't want to, right? And so if would I rather, slowly build up to that rate of return? And you mentioned, in whole life, it's a straight line. It's actually a curved line, because it looks kind of straight, but then when it gets exponential, it's very curved, and that's what you want. That's when I want that curve to happen, not the squiggly snake curves all throughout when I'm scared.
Yeah.
When I'm 90, or, again, going back to Mr. Less, what do you do when you're 82? I don't want to be scared. That's when I want to be getting my best rate of returns. And then looking forward, 83 is going to be even better.
Yeah, if every single year is better than the year before, that sounds like the kind of life I want to live, and I want to leave to my family and future generations. Wow, very cool. I know this message of continuous improvement is not for everybody. I know some people are happier with just the same old, doing what all the friends at the barbecue are doing. But for the weird ones, for the not so average ones, this is something that is possible. It's not a pipe dream. We've been doing it, you guys. It's been a privilege to be friends with you guys for many years, not just in business, but outside of business too. But I see it. I see you guys getting better every single year, not just in your finances, but also in your marriage and in your friendship and in the work you guys do to improve your lives. And money shouldn't be divorced from that intention to improve. We should always be trying to be a better version of ourselves every year and improve the world around us. And why should your financial life be totally separate from that?
Yep.
If it was possible to be better every year, wouldn't you want to try?
Yeah. And I have to say, we're not using better in the way like you have to work harder. You got to put in more hours. Better could actually be working fewer hours, taking more time for self-care, that like translate better into whatever fits with what growth mindset looks like for you. Thank you, Carol Dweck.
Yep. Growth mindset. Great way to put that.
Yeah.
Brandon, I did want to make a plug real quick. Mark said it's not in a report anywhere, but we do have a special report that we have here. It is 5 simple steps to secure your future outside of a W-2, a special report. But it's having a report that you guys can download, and we just redesigned it. There's a lot of great stuff here that you guys want to check out, along with QR codes, which everybody loves QR codes nowadays. So check that out. Let me see if you can see it. The Debtor Saver Staircase. There you go.
Love it.
So go download this. It's free. Just go to wealthwisdomfp.com/report, and you can get your report and learn on your own. And then if you want to talk to us, that's great. But really, what we want to do is we do this content all the time. Is we are all not average. No one wants to be average. We shouldn't say, "Oh yes, I'm average," but we want to be better than that. We want to have a different place. We want to also look back and say, how'd that work out for them? And maybe we need to do something else. So reflect inward to yourself as you guys are listening. And you guys know, we're not speaking crazy stuff. We just showed the math, and you want to ask, is that worth something? And maybe should I go somewhere and figure it out? Because 30 years from now, you don't want to look back and say, oh, I wish I would have. We don't want that. We want to help you be above average.
Yes, we had some people jump on here at the very end. We're about to wrap up. You're going to want to go back and watch from the very beginning because we talked a lot about why rate of return doesn't matter. And we came up with at least 4 other things that do matter and could change your financial future. So if you missed any of those 4, or you missed the why rate of return doesn't matter at the very beginning, please go back and watch. I do want to change one thing I said. I talked about a rate of return when I'm 82, when I'm 90. And for people that know Bank on Yourself, you know that it's not a rate of return. That term does not apply to whole life insurance. There are increases in cash value. There are increases in the death benefit, but it's not the same thing as a rate of return. Go back to why the rate of return doesn't matter for why I said that and why it's important to make a clear distinction between an increase in your portfolio, a real, tangible, you can buy groceries with this increase if you need, versus a return that's phantom, that's not actually realized unless you sell that stock.
Well said. Yeah, I want a bigger increase of my dollars every single year for the rest of my life. And only insurance contracts that I'm aware of allow us to do that with any kind of predictability or guarantees baked in.
Okay.
Thank you, Amanda. Do you want to send us off, or are we all set?
Yeah, Mark, tell them where they can find the Not Your Average Financial Podcast, what you do, what anything special you'd have to offer, anything like that.
Sure. I'm glad to be on the train with you guys. I think everyone definitely should check out that special report. It's chock full, just like this video and just like Amanda's comments today, just chock full of great content. And watch out for their 5 Smooth Stones journal coming out here soon too, if it's not already coming out by the time you watch this. So look out for that as well. You can find our show at notyouraverageFinancialPodcast.com. And Amanda was our guest this morning. So Amanda's going all over the interwebs. Brandon, you got to keep up, man.
I know. When you're ready to have me, I'll be there again.
All right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, come on over, man. Good to be with you. And thank you guys very much for having me on today.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, Mark. Happy Friday, y'all. If you're catching this when it comes out, hope you have a great weekend. Whenever you're watching this, we hope you're having a great day. Please let us know how we can make your tomorrow bigger than your past. We look forward to seeing how we can walk alongside you on your financial journey. Reach out to any or all of us. We would love to hear from you. Live long and profits. Way to go, guys.